everyone. My name is Matt Outlaw. I'm the superintendent of schools here. I'm going into my 6th year, and I have had the honor of being part of this program for the past 5 years. And I'm extremely excited to be introducing our 5th class to our Ed Diane Donaldson Distinguished Wall of Fame. I want to thank you all for being here and being part of this really special event for this community. I want to start off with a few introductions. From our Brandon Board of Education, we have John Chartier. John is a 1972 graduate from Brandon High School. Also, we have our Board of Education Secretary, Ms. Melissa Clark. From Brandon Township, we have our Township Trustee. We have Candy Allen as the Brandon Township Clerk. Kathy Thurman is the Brandon Township Supervisor. From the VFW, we have Post Commander Dennis Hoffman, accompanied by Ron Allen, also from the VFW. A super volunteer in the community, former fire chief in the community, Mr. Bob MacArthur. From the Ortonville Historical Society, Judy Miracle. We have three people that are here on our wall with us tonight. We have Ron Sutton, Joe Slaughter, and Clark Lori Cook. We're going to hear from this group, but the Donaldson family, they are the reason that this program exists. So the Donaldson family. We have Jeff Malke. He is here recording this, and we also have Ortonville TV. So this will be broadcast around the community, so people can watch this event. So thank you both for being here. In addition, we also have a number of our Brandon administrators here. I'm going to just start on this side, work my way across. We have our high school principal, Dan Stevens. Next to Dan, we have Mr. Dave Wyatt. No relation to Gwen Hamilton. He's assistant principal at the high school. Working our way across in the middle, we have Diane Zidane. She is the director of special education and preschool for our district. Next, we have Brian Moore. He's the head of our virtual school and a future Mr. Ortonville. He does a little bit of everything. Next, we have Carol Amos from our Human Resource Department. Pam Westerby is one of the people that has really made this event happen. Pam, thank you so much. A Brandon graduate from 1990, Pam is very, she's put a lot of years into this district, and it's a really amazing person. She's worked with us for a number of years, so thank you. We have Debbie Brower from Harvey Swanson Elementary School. Next to Debbie, we have Jan Meek. She is the district CFO. Next, we have Dr. Schmitto, Dr. Dave Schmitto. He is our curriculum director. Next to him, we have Mike Tucker, Brandon Middle School principal. Next, we have Chris Dinas. He's director of athletics for the Brandon School District. Next, we have Thomas Janszewski. He's the director of technology for the district. I think I have everybody here other than, and we have Coy Stewart from Oakwood. I'm also going to honor here Tom Tomich. He is a high school teacher, but he also takes pictures of all these events. And when you see these amazing pictures on the website, all of these different pictures, he's the person behind it. Real genius with the camera. And then Tanya Selig from Paramount Signs. She is the person behind the scenes on this. She designed this wall and all these plaques. She puts these all together every year, does a lot of amazing things. So, Tanya, thank you for your help. And finally, there's Maria. The person who pulls this whole event together, that puts everything together, does all the little things to make this room beautiful and to make this event happen every single year, Maria Schubert. So we're here today to recognize the fifth class of exemplary Ortonville Brandon graduates to this distinguished alumni wall of fame. This program was launched with the generous support of the Donaldson family 5 years ago. And our collective vision for this program was to capture the amazing stories of Brandon graduates and use them as inspiration for the students that are here today and as a source of pride for the entire Ortonville Brandon community. 5 years later, I think this program has been very successful, and we've really enjoyed telling the stories of Brandon graduates. Some of our past winners, we had our 3 original winners. They were honored in the 15-16 school year. We have 2 of those winners here. We have Mr. Ortonville, Ron Sutton, 1948 graduate, over 60 years of dedicated service to the Ortonville community. Mr. Ron Sutton. Next, we have a person that has done so much for the Brandon School District, has never forgot his roots, is here every year, has done so many things to bring opportunities to Brandon students, was president CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, very successful, a humble man. It's been an honor to get to know him, Mr. Joe Slaughter. Go through some of our others here. In that original 3, we also honored Matt Lentz. Matt Lentz was a 2001 graduate, was an all Big Ten offensive lineman at the University of Michigan, and he's an alumnus of the National Football League. After doing this, Matt joined our varsity football program as one of our coaches, and he's been coaching with us ever since. And a sidebar, our teams have been really strong, 8-1, 6-3, 8-1, and they're currently 5-1 right now, so he's doing a great job. In our second year, we honored Justin Quisenberry, West Point graduate, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 3 Bronze Stars, a war hero, great man, and we also honored Cynthia Heck McDermott. And she is a professor at Harvard and has done extensive research on the eye and has published and has spent many years teaching students. So they were in our second year. Our third year, we didn't disappoint again, and I was thrilled to be able to honor local business people that have really done some amazing things, not just for the community, but the entire county. People know Cook's Dairy Farm and the amazing work that they have done, but Clark and Lori Cook, thank you so much for being here, for all that you've done for the district. So, that same year was one of the coolest stories that I can remember. We had one of our high school students, his name is Noah Cox, and he's been part of this program for a number of years. He's off at the University of Michigan now, but he still stays connected with this program. But he's worked at the Historical Society since he was really young. And he found an amazing story of a 1943 Ortonville High School graduate named Leo Flood, who during World War II was honored for his gallantry, and he gave his life to save other soldiers and won the Silver Star, but we honor him as well. And it was an absolutely amazing story that had this high school student to find this story, to connect with family across the country, to really tell us this amazing story of a graduate. And then last year, we had 2 more amazing stories. We had Jamie McDermott, who was Jamie Evans when she was here, very successful woman in business, president of Crossmark Sales, so a multi-billion-dollar corporation, 30 years of executive global leadership. She told many amazing stories as well. And then we had Officer Tim Purdy, who's a highly decorated officer, was a National Police Officer of the Month. Was honored for saving a young boy, and was featured on CNN and elsewhere. Just some amazing stories here. But I get excited just hearing these stories, and I'm really looking forward to adding to this. We have 2 more amazing stories to tell tonight. Can't wait to get to those folks. But before I do this, the people that have been here in the past know this question that I'm always going to ask. There's a question that I'm going to ask, and that question is, who will it be? Who will it be? Which student walking the halls today will one day have their name enshrined and their plaque be placed on this wall? They're here today. They're in our schools. And what I'm really excited about is that they get inspiration from the stories of those that came before them. So absolutely thrilled to have you all here tonight. And without further ado, I want to introduce Diane Donaldson, who has been an amazing contributor to this district. Her and her husband spent over a half century of service to this community. And it's a great honor to have the Donaldson family name up here as part of this amazing honor. So Diane Donaldson, thank you for everything.
I'm going to start out by saying that the history of the Donaldson family really doesn't change. So those of you that have been here before will probably remember a lot of the things that I'm going to say. But a lot of you that are here don't have a good memory either. So it's just a little new story for you today. It's really great to it was easier last year, I don't know why. Oh, never mind. I'm making too many mistakes. It's really good to see people I haven't seen in many years, and several that I reconnected with just this year. I am honored to be here representing the entire Donaldson family as we celebrate the 2019 class of the Ed and Diane Donaldson Brandon High School Distinguished Alumni Award. I would like to acknowledge my family that is here tonight. This is Edwin Keenan Donaldson II, known as Keenan, and Avery Donaldson, oh my God, their names. Avery Donaldson, who belonged to my daughter-in-law, Erin, and my son, who went from Pittsburgh to Detroit and hopefully driving here right now. He'll come dragging a suitcase in shortly, hopefully. And then this is Alex, a very dear person to our family because it is Alexandria's, who used to be Alex, boyfriend. And so it's Alex and Alexandria. And then we have Craig, my son-in-law, and Michelle, my niece, and Steve, my son, Tamara, my daughter. Chico was one of Ed's basketball players, and he still remembers me 12 years later after Ed died, and I really appreciate that. Did I forget any of the family? No, I think I got them all. Okay. Alyssa is also a granddaughter, sister to Alex, and she's at the University of, she's a She's a physical therapist as a doctor at one of the hospitals in Toledo. Did not get off tonight, so she's unable to be here. But I know she's here with her heart. Okay. Combined, Ed and I served the Brandon School District for nearly half a century. We came to Ortonville right out of Olivet College where we met. 2 days after we got married, our first day of teaching began. As a college cheerleader, I was the captain of the squad. I brought the same energy, discipline, and commitment to my job as an elementary school teacher as I did to my college cheerleading team. My enthusiasm and spirit for helping kids learn and grow was evident each and every day. My passion for the Brandon's kids was evident to anyone who ever saw me or heard me at a sporting event. Anytime, anywhere, any sport. I thoroughly enjoyed my time as cheerleading coach because of the pride I had in everything this town and this school represents, the pride I had in my students. I now live in Florida where Ed and I retired over 20 years ago. As a college athlete, Ed was a great leader and teammate, which ultimately led for him to be inducted into the Olivet College Hall of Fame. His number was number 14. And since then, number 14 has been a big part of our family. It's called a God wink. And just a couple examples of how much 14 comes up in our lives. My granddaughter was number 14 for 4 years of softball in high school. My grandson was 1 year number 14 in baseball. My granddaughter is number 14 on the volleyball team this year. Okay, there's more. My son went to 2 different Merrill Lynch conventions, The one convention, his room number was 14. The next one he went to a few months later, his room number was 1414. Those are all godlings in our family. And also, when I went to a restaurant one time out of the city of Lakeland, I was sitting there, and I looked up, and there's all these pictures on the wall. And there's one picture this big, and all it had on it was a red 14. It's like they are godlings in our family, and we know that he's with us. Okay. During his career at Brandon, he rose from physical education teacher and basketball coach, where his teams won 80% of their games over a 10-year span, to athletic director and ultimately principal. Ed lived by the motto, champions are made, not born. He believed life is a level playing field and success is earned through hard work and discipline by you and those you hang around with. He played multiple roles in lives of all of us. He touched especially within our family. He was a husband, father, grandfather, coach, and mentor, and ultimately our best friend. Although dying in 2007, his spirit lives on with us and throughout the halls of this high school, where he spent so much of his adult life. He would be extremely proud to be associated with this special award and to be witness of this special event and these special people. One of the proudest accomplishments as parents is having Tamara and David being honored as fellow alumni on the Brandon High School Wall of Fame, where their pictures are hung down the wall, just down the hall, as all state golfers. The accomplishment is meaningful to them because they are so proud to have represented their town, their family, this school, and community, and have associated with the many other talented people who have come through this school. On behalf of my entire family, I want to thank you for allowing our contribution to the Brandon schools to be recognized in such a meaningful way. We especially want to thank Superintendent Dr. Matt Outlaw for spearheading the idea and all of those who supported it to make it possible. Dr. Outlaw always recognizes all the people involved in this event, and I just wanted to let everyone know that the family appreciates the custodians, the kitchen help that put out the night display of food, our AV experts, the committee that spends hours trying to figure out which two people are going to be nominated because there are so many great ones, Maria, who I'm sure keeps the ball rolling, and Dr. Outlaw, of course, is very important in this also. And my family and I really appreciate all of you for everything you do. I did much better last year. On behalf of the we hope this is something that will have and will live on and expand each year to future generations of Brandon alumni. I want to relay how proud my family and I are of being associated with this award and how proud we are of this year's class. I want to congratulate and say a big thank you to this year's class for your contribution throughout your life. You're a true representation of all that's good and positive about Ortonville and Brandon. You make my family proud to be a Brandon Blackhawk. Congratulations.
Let's have one more round of applause for the entire Donaldson family. Okay, at this time, it's time for us to meet our honorees. These folks were chosen from a large group of really highly qualified graduates that probably will be on this wall someday. And I'm really excited to hear their stories. So without further ado, I'm going to invite up Joe Slaughter, who's going to introduce Dr. Gwen Wyatt.
Good evening. Dr. Outlaw gave me an assignment. He gave me the assignment of introducing one of this year's nominees. I have good news. During my 13 years at Brandon High School, I received a lot of assignments. So I'm experienced. I have bad news. I have a lot of classmates here. They will testify that there was generally a lot more time spent by the teacher giving the assignment than there was spent by Slaughter preparing for the assignment. There is good news though. Out of my deep respect for Dr. Outlaw, I began my preparation for this presentation in the fall of 1952. When our nominee and I entered Mrs. Conklin's kindergarten. This presentation is 67 years in the making. During our school years, Ortonville was a small town. Much like it is today, it was a great place to grow up. Brandon Schools was a great place to get an education. Much like it is today, we had outstanding administrators and wonderful teachers. Our Ortonville was anchored by Davis Machinery. Mrs. Davis often was one of our substitute teachers. Another anchor was Pangus Realty. Gary Pangus was in our class. One of the other anchors downtown was Owen Chevrolet. We graduated with that Owen. The northeast anchor was Hamilton Fuel and Feed, a business founded by the mother and father of our nominee. In that environment, it was rich with role models, people that could develop your character, your work ethic, and your love of learning. Our nominee was surrounded by such role models. As long as she can remember, she remembers her parents opening the store early in the morning and being there late at night, and then after they closed the store, doing the work of running a business. She learned the message of caring for people. If people were out of coal, the store wasn't open, they would share, hey, there's a stash around back. Help yourself, settle up when you can. If the phone were to ring in the middle of the night and somebody out in the hinterlands had run out of fuel oil, Dad would fire up the truck and go out and take care and meet the needs of other people. That wasn't wasted on our nominee. She also had the first spark of her love of learning kindled at home. Her mother also substitute taught in addition to running that business. Her mother loved learning. In school, that spark was fanned by teachers such as Mrs. Salters, Mrs. Hempstead, who read to her. We've recently heard this great revelation that if you read to kids, they'll be interested in education. Somehow, 65 years ago, these ladies understood that if you spend some time with Boxcar Children and the Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House series, kids get interested in learning. We grew up in farm country. Every class had to be practical, even physics. She recalls very vividly Mr. Dickinson making physics real and explaining centrifugal force. Mr. Dickinson, who was also a farmer, you bet he was a great farmer. He was a tenor in the Baptist choir, but he was also a bus driver. And he explained that at a certain speed, centrifugal force, if you will envision with me coming down Varsity Drive on the old high school, which is now Harvey Swanson Elementary School, that's a pretty sharp curve. And Mr. Dickerson explained, that there is a certain speed at which the centrifugal force will make you break that curve, and you will find out how. That lesson was one of those real world lessons. We had a number of classmates that challenged thinking and the laws of physics. 50 year, we weren't seniors. Mr. Dickerson and the law of physics were undefeated. And I would assume that they have remained undefeated since that day. Our nominee not only benefited from the curriculum here at Brandon High School, she also gained a great deal of real-life skills from the co-curricular activities. She was a drum majorette, and she starred in several of the all-school plays, which gave her the flair for the dramatic and enhanced the communication skills that would prove so valuable to her throughout her career. In the fall of '65, she was prepared to follow her dream to Michigan State and to earn her first of 5 college degrees. She became an elementary school teacher in 1969, and over the course of the next 3 years, earned her master's degree in education also. It was at that point another role model came into her life. Her mother-in-law fascinated her with the stories of nursing and her mother-in-law's experience as a nurse. So our nominee decided to go back to school, earn a 3rd college degree, and become a nurse. Shortly after becoming a staff nurse, she had the opportunity to really marry 2 of her loves and skills, that of teaching and nursing. She had the opportunity to begin teaching nursing in a community college. She loved it. It was a natural. It was a great fit. And she understood for this to be a sustainable career, she would need a master's degree in nursing. So, back to school. Went to Wayne State and got her master's degree in nursing. That afforded her the golden opportunity, the opportunity that really changed everything. She became assistant professor of nursing at the prestigious Michigan State College of Nursing in 1980. The career path of a college nurse at a Big Ten school is one that, to be tenured, you must have a PhD in your field. So she began while teaching full-time, she began to pursue her PhD at MSU. Along the way, she learned that she loved research and that she was, in fact, a very good researcher. She completed the requirements for the PhD at Michigan State in 1988 and went on to become a full professor in 1994. Today, her work is really in 2 major areas. Number 1, she works primarily with PhD students doing their research, overseeing their research for their degree requirement. She also helps them and other colleagues that are seeking to publish their research. The other part of her work is her primary love, and that is she is doing research herself. She's doing world-renowned, groundbreaking research. She's reaching out, providing hope and help to victims of breast cancer. Her focus is primarily on reflexology and acupressure treatments that relieve some of the pain and some of the symptoms for cancer victims. When we judge the body of work of a research professor, there really are 5 areas you need to consider. Grants. Are people that are the most knowledgeable in the field willing to invest in this person's research? 2, articles. Are people interested in reading about the results that this person has garnered? 3, conferences, professional seminars. Do people want to listen to what they have to say? 4, collaboration. do the best people in the world want to work with this person? And 5, then, awards. Do the most knowledgeable people in the field think that this person's work is noteworthy? Let's go back. 1, grants. Since 1995, our nominee has been the recipient of over $11 million in grants. Grants from the who's who in medical research, grants from the National Cancer Institute, the National Health Institute, the Defense Department. She has been involved in numerous research projects. She's been the primary investigator on 9 completed projects. Articles. Those of you that have spent time in academia know that it is very, very difficult to get an article published in a scholarly scientific journal. Our nominee has 76 articles published in medical, professional, scientific journals. It is the ultimate compliment to be invited to speak at a professional seminar. Our nominee has spoken at over 200 seminars. Collaboration. Who wants to work with this woman? Literally everyone. She leads a team of 30 professionals. She has worked with the who's who around the world, including people at Johns Hopkins, Northwestern, University of Arizona, numerous hospitals throughout the UK and India. She is known all over the world. Awards. Her resume includes a page of awards. More impressive to me than the number of awards that she has received is the diversity and scope of the awards. She has been recognized by her students, by her colleagues, by her university, by healthcare companies, and by foundations. In nursing, less than 1% of nurses have PhDs. The ultimate recognition for a nurse is to be recognized as a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. In 2013, that organization designated our nominee as a fellow. This lady, operating at the highest echelon of her profession, still finds time to be involved in Ortonville. She's here every year for Septemberfest. She gets here for Christmas in the village. And since the day that her parents gave the mill to the city in 1968, she's been involved with the Ortonville Historic Society at every level. Levels that entail bringing our class for our 50-year reunion to the mill, to baking cookies for the fundraiser every year. She has changed the world with her heart, with her mind, with her soul, with her character, her work ethic, and her love of learning. Her intellect has taken her to the highest level of her professional career, but her heart has kept her home in Ortonville. Please welcome with me to the Brandon Wall of Fame from the class of 1965, Dr. Gwen Hamilton.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? My son just got here. And he did make it, so that's what I'm hoping.
So the family's complete now. That's great. That's great. Oh, boy. Joe did not tell me he was going to go to that extreme, but thank you very much. Oh, my goodness. I think you read my resume. But tonight, I would like to thank everyone associated with this award. I can't tell you how much it means to me and how humbled I am by my hometown school system honoring me in this way. It's wonderful to see so many of you here. My classmates are here. They're just scattered all throughout and this way, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I've got family here in the front row, which is a real treat as well. And a special thanks, of course, to my dear friend and classmate, Joe, who you can see that he's been at the podium before, too. And the selection committee, of course, who had to go through all the materials to make these decisions. But since Joe told you so much about what I've been doing career-wise, I thought I'd just tell you a short story in the few minutes that we have to share my gratitude for this honor. I've always wanted to be a writer of prose, but I ended up being a science writer instead, so I took this opportunity to shift gears a little bit. So here we go. This story begins in 1839 when a businessman named Amos Orton brought his family by ox cart over Indian trails to what is now known as northern Oakland County. He and his wife Emily, along with their 2 children, had traveled here from upstate New York to this densely wooded area with a beautiful stream flowing through it and an abundance of fresh water from bubbling artesian springs. Boy, did we love playing in those springs as kids. Amos soon saw the economic potential of a water-powered mill. So by 1848, he had built a log home for his family and the original grist mill on the banks of what is now Kearsley Creek. And so there the mill began. Just like the meandering Kearsley Creek, I'm going to take us on a little trip that winds through a life in Ortonville and the Brandon schools. You may already know that it's next to impossible to enter the village without crossing over a bridge or a creek or one of the tributaries of Kearsley Creek. In a similar fashion, I'll guide this story across a few of my life bridges during my favorite years in this village and on the banks of Kearsley Creek. So in order to do that, we need to fast forward from 1848, about a century, 100 years. I came on the scene as the 3rd child and only daughter of the village miller at that time, Jack Hamilton and his wife Emmeline. While Jack operated the mill at one end of the business district on Mill Street, Emmeline ran the feed and seed store 2 blocks east at the other end of the business district. Yes, it was the feed and seed then, it's now the feed and fuel. Emmeline was not only the proprietor of the feed and seed, but also was often called upon to substitute teach in the local school, the Brandon schools, of course. It would be Mr. Burt, the principal, making one of his early morning phone calls to see if Mom could fill in for a sick teacher, and in later years, it was Mr. Harvey as principal. Believe me, my brothers and I knew the value of education and respect for our teachers. Many lessons do begin at home, and my appreciation for education was ingrained from day one. I dare say that I received the finest education in the country from Brandon schools. As I shared with Joe while we were reminiscing for tonight, all my foundational knowledge came from those classrooms and teachers and experiences in the Brandon schools. In the elementary years, as Joe mentioned, Mrs. Hempstead and Mrs. Salter taught me a love of literature and poetry that's always stayed with me. Those teachers' ability to tell a story took my imagination to places well beyond the classroom. We were read most of the classics that were available for elementary children in that day, including Grimm fairy tales, along with the poetry of Edgar Allan Poe, like Annabel Lee. As you know, in the Annabel Lee poem, Poe explored the death of a beautiful woman who the narrator had fallen in love with and expressed. His love was so strong that even the angels were envious. I ask you, how could an impressionable young girl not be enthralled with such a poem? Believe me, I was. Yes, we did learn the times tables too, and which planet from the sun we resided on. All bases were covered. Middle school was a sticky time, as most experienced those years, wanting to be grown up, but still so much growing to do. Mrs. Davis, as Joe mentioned, taught us math, or actually I guess it was beginning geometry, and created a magical world with numbers for us. She had us all draw a triangle of any shape or size we wished. She then asked us to measure each angle with our protractor and add the degrees of the three angles together. We were to draw a big circle around the final number so she could easily see it as she walked up and down the aisles between our desks. She was able to do this amazing thing. By just looking at the circled number on our paper, she could tell how accurate our job was. For some, she asked them to remeasure the three angles. For others, she checked their addition of the three angles. And yet for others, she offered praise that they had done the assignment just right. We could not figure out how she knew by just quickly looking at our paper until the end of the class, when she revealed her magic. But oh, the suspense. That all triangles, no matter how different in appearance, all contained exactly 180 degrees. Mystery solved. Class very impressed. Even self-absorbed teenagers. These middle school years were also the only time our class had sports for girls. Remember, this was way back when. And we had a teacher named Mr. Musso who set up a track and field course for girls and coached us on this team. I don't know if this was part of his assignment or not, but sports for girls who were a part of the 1960s curriculum did not really have such extramural activities. But teenage girls have lots of extra energy and needed an outlet in sports as well. And Mr. Musso provided us this great opportunity. I understand he went on to coach at many other places and at the college level also. In high school, our literature teacher, Mr. Menor, introduced us to the forbidden fruits of the day. Reading books like 1984, featuring Big Brother, and Catcher in the Rye with Holden Caulfield. Oh my, those were exciting and risque reads. This was along with the classics, of course, like Treasure Island. Excellent, challenging assignments and critical thinking he pulled out of us. We were encouraged to look way beyond the surface, asking questions like, what was the difference for Huck Finn when he and Jim were on the river versus on the land? The underlying pattern being safety versus danger, of course. I never would have figured that out in high school without the challenge to think beyond the obvious. In history class in 1964, when the Democratic presidential candidate was Lyndon Johnson and the Republican Barry Goldwater, Mr. Harvey had Mike Bartle and I conduct an impromptu presidential debate in class. He knew that I came from the home of Republican business people and Mike from the home of General Motors Democrats. Both Mike and I muddled our way through talking points we had heard from our respective homes. It was definitely enlightening to me to hear the other side of the presidential debate from a classmate, since I was pretty seeped in the Republican side. But coming back to our village, where this wonderful school system resides, Mr. Miller directed the high school plays, and one year I played the role of Emily's mother in the Pulitzer Prize-winning play, Our Town. While the author, Thornton Wilder, had the play take place in 1936 Grover's Corner, it could have been our village of Ortonville. The real purpose of the play was to serve as an example of what ordinary people did in their everyday lives. It had the comfort of apple pie or mac and cheese. As you recall, young Emily dies in childbirth and is greeted by her friends and relatives who have passed before her as she enters into the cemetery up on the hill. Oh, up on M15 there maybe. Emily asks to be granted one day in her old life, which turns out to be unfulfilling for her. She sees how blind the living are to what's important and how limited their time on earth will actually be. She ends up saying, living people do not appreciate their lives the way they should. While I took part in this play, in all the events and experiences that I'm reminiscing on tonight, I too, like Emily, have often forgotten to appreciate my early years here in Ortonville, and especially the importance of this Brandon school system. But tonight, as this story meanders like Kearsley Creek through my past, and the old grist mill is now the village museum, which I'm so pleased about, you all have reminded me how very grateful I am to all our teachers and administrators, past and present, who have sustained excellence in this school system over the years. I thank you all.
this time, I'd like to invite Connie Fisher forward to introduce our next honoree.
Good evening, everyone. In the long-running off-Broadway musical, The Fantastics, Bellamy, the long-suffering father of a teenage daughter and an avid gardener, sings a lament about the dilemma of raising children. He says, "Plant a radish, you get a radish. While with children, you don't know until the seed is nearly grown just what you have sown." And so it must have been for the parents of our next distinguished alumni. Ron Canigliaro. When Ron was in high school, I thought that he was a quiet, well-behaved young man, and he was. I never imagined that he would become a world traveler, a professional musician, a TV producer, a photojournalist, and an entrepreneur. So when my daughter, Lori Fisher Phelps, told me that she wanted to nominate him for this honor, I thought that Ron would make an excellent addition to this visual display of Brandon graduates who have made such significant contributions to our world. Since Lori could not be here tonight, she asked me to read to you her introduction to Ron. This is her introduction. It was after nominating Ron for his work in photography that I realized that he is not only a photographer, but that he has done so many things. Ron is the CEO of software companies with offices around the world, a professional photographer, a TV producer, a musician, and a worldwide traveler. When I spoke with Ron after he found out that he was receiving the Ed and Diane Donaldson Distinguished Alumni Award, I asked him if he remembered Mr. Donaldson. He laughed and said, "Oh yeah, I got the paddle from him." Ron has taken pictures all over the world, capturing the beauty of wildlife and nature, the tapestries of the heaven and earth, and the shared humanity of people everywhere. Many of his pictures have been submitted to professional photography magazines and digital media and publications. He has won awards for his work, and his photos have been exhibited all over the world. Ron is a firm believer in hard work and in mentoring, and he is meticulous about his products. In spite of all Ron's accomplishments, what I found most endearing about him is his humble spirit and his persistence, which has led him down the path to so many successes. Congratulations to Ron for receiving this award for distinguished achievement in the arts and technology. And I give you Ron Canigliaro.
Where did it go? Where did it go?
Wow, I'm completely blown away by all of this. just can't say enough. Thank you to the Donaldson family for making all of this possible. It's really wonderful to be a part of this, to see the people on this wall and what they've achieved, and to think that the radish could be here. My parents, I would thank very much. My father, Peter, my mother, Joyce, my beautiful wife, Maya, my best friend, Lisa, my fishing buddy, Ryan, people that all along the way have provided me with support and guidance, to kind of help me out, because I took a different path, in school. I knew that, I never had an idea that I would go to college. I knew from the beginning I never really considered college. I could have gone, but it just wasn't for me. I was going to go become a rock star. Then, and I went off and became a musician and starved to death. And I mean, we recorded albums that was sold all over the world. We didn't make any money. But, that was my dream and that was my thing. And I got to the point where, it was time I was living in Louisiana at that time, in Mississippi, and like right out of high school, as soon as I graduated, I was down traveling and playing and, not doing much, to be honest with you, just trying to do the musical thing. And when I came back home, I decided, it was to get to work. And I started doing drafting, which was one of the big things that I got here in Brandon. What Brandon did was, I think that they realized that I was kind of on this different path, and they did so much for me to modify curriculum where they literally added 2 drafting courses for me so that I could get extra knowledge in that. They provided me with vocational electronics courses that were the finest. They allowed me to go to work in what used to be Pontiac Tool here in Ortonville. And so I was, really, really learning at that time about mechanical engineering and electrical kinds of things. So when music maybe didn't go so good, I came back and I got a job doing drafting, electronics, and this is the very beginning, right, of PCs. And I had my boss told me go in that room and learn how to program this computer. And I never looked back. It was something that I loved. And it's interesting that today I'm being honored for arts and technology. These are 2 things that are seemingly opposite. One is a very analog, abstract kind of world, and you think of IT as being very binary and very, very fixed. But I think it was my art and the way I process information that allowed me to write software in a way that I found to be truly unique, where how I looked at it was, you're just teaching the computer how to solve problems that you do in your head. So when I started writing software, I had no gauge of what was easy or hard, and I just thought, make it go the way I would solve it. So I wound up implementing at that time, which would now be called fuzzy logic, object-oriented, goal matching, rule-based, a lot of like artificial intelligence type stuff that I had no idea, right? Because I didn't have any gauge, nobody taught me. So anyways, this wound up becoming what now is Quantum Information System Solutions, where we have offices all over the world, developing software for companies like Hewlett-Packard, Raytheon, Ford, Getrag, Magna, AkzoNobel. We have offices in Vietnam, France, in Bordeaux, Dublin, Ireland. We're headquartered here in Waterford. So You know, it was, to me, interesting that arts and technology are not so far apart. You know, that if you're creative, you can put that to other things to really differentiate yourself in the market. So on top of that, there's actually 3 other software companies that I have that are more geared toward like mobile apps and those types of things. But once we got going, you know, you get a couple of successes and then things just kind of have a way of taking off. So I made some notes tonight, and I'm not good at going through, and I just more speak from my heart, you know. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about, we talked about world traveling, just some of the things that I've done that have kind of got me to this point. You know, tonight they're showing, a lot of my photos are coming up here from all over the world, and I consider myself a street photographer. And what that means is, you see, like right now, these are just candid photos of people on the streets. If they're not looking at me, they didn't even know I was there. You know, this to me is where you really capture the essence of people. And I do a lot of wildlife photography as well, and macro, and a lot of different things. But I tried to just put a presentation together to kind of give you a rough idea of what I do, but primarily the street photography. So anyways, this is the one thing I wanted to read to you, because I wrote this down for Matt, and I just kind of laughed after I sent it to him, because I went, well, this is pretty crazy. And Mom, you should probably plug your ears right about now. In fact, I think I was talking to my mom about some of this stuff the other night, and she's like, oh my God, these things.
I'm hearing it.
Yeah, right. Okay, so here we go. Okay, I've been to the running of the bulls in Pamplona. I've done cage diving with great white sharks in South Africa. I've literally touched and walked with a free-roaming bull elephant. It literally put his trunk in my hand, and you would just walk in. And this is a massive free-roaming elephant. I had a tiger try to eat me in China, literally. I had a rhino hit my Jeep in South Africa. I had a bear stand on my Jeep in northern Canada. A shark charged me in the Bahamas. I filmed the most venomous spider in the world in the Amazon of Peru. And I may add that this was at night, and I was filming macro, which means that my camera was literally that close to the spider. And at the time, I didn't know what the spider was. I was traveling with some Nat Geo guys and with a group of scientists. And what we were doing was going into the jungle. The objective was to try to identify new species of ants and spiders. And so we were out at night taking photos of these spiders. And one of the guys came and said, Ron, you have to see this spider. You have to get a photo of it. So I went to where it was, and it was just, you know, this big and just beautiful, yellows and orange on its face. And, you know, I got the camera very close to it, and I noticed that there was a whole web filled with baby spiders. So I said to the guy, this spider's not going anywhere. He's going to stay right here. So go get a stick so we can kind of poke at him a little bit and make him stand up, you know, because I want a really dramatic photo. So anyways, I get the shot, and then the next morning we were doing what's called species identification. And one of the scientists, when the photo came up like this, the scientist said, who took this photo? This is really nice. And I said, I took this photo. And he said, yeah, don't do that. This is the most poisonous spider in the world, and literally, if it bit you, you would not make it out of here. Because we were deep into the jungles, and it would be a 2-hour walk back to a boat, 4 hours down the river, 2 hours to a bus back to the city. So, you know, my mother doesn't even like to hear about spiders. I've caught tigerfish in the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe. I've been soaked at Songkran Festival in Thailand. I've been to Mount Everest just recently. I was on a photo expedition to Mount Everest. all through Tibet. I stood on the Great Wall of China. I've hiked the monastery at Mount Kailash in Tibet. I visited the palace of the Dalai Lama in Tibet. One thing I can note about that is there's a photo that comes up. It's a beautiful little girl. She couldn't have been 3 or 4 years old, and she's praying. And the background is all pink. And a very good friend, she was on this trip with us. She's a prominent surgeon that they do facial reconstruction for children, where she goes around the world and gives her time. And she tells me that photo made the trip totally worthwhile, that it is so touching to her, and that actually sent that photo to the Dalai Lama. So it's something I'm very proud of. And she's praying, by the way. She was doing Kora, and she's doing what's called prostrating. And what this is that the Tibetan people, they will pray, and they literally take 3 steps. They lay face down on the ground. They stand up, they pray, they do 3 steps, they lay face down on the ground, and they do this all the way around the temple for entire days. And when they go, at some point in their life, they'll literally go from their hometown to Lhasa, but they'll do this literally for 2 years straight. So this little girl, it was amazing. She couldn't have been 3 or 4 years old. So to see her out in the street doing this, and the beauty of it, it just is completely overwhelming. It's unbelievable. I've been bitten by a brown recluse spider. I've eaten tarantulas in Cambodia. A Cambodian militia took me in a vehicle to go shoot a rocket launcher. They literally sort of kidnapped me. And I had to, literally I was thinking that I have to jump out of the vehicle because I was quite scared. And I wound up having to pay these guys to turn around and let me out. So it was, actually I think I was dating Maya maybe a month at the time. And she said, when you go on this trip, don't get in trouble. And when I got to Cambodia, the 2 photographers I was supposed to work with both bailed on me. So I was on my own, and I just, literally this cab pulled up and the kid said, do you need a ride? And I said, yes. And he's, to this day, a lifelong friend. But he wound up driving me everywhere in Cambodia. And we were supposed to go to Udong Mountain, and we had a little communication breakdown, and the next thing you knew, I was in a truck going to shoot a rocket launcher. Which I did not do, by the way. I was taken and bribed in Ghana. I was hit by a machine gun in India. I was in a bad vehicle accident in Myanmar. We were going down the mountain, and the brakes went out on the vehicle. And it just shook out of control. The axle broke, a wheel fell off, and we wound up just going so fast down this mountain and head into a brick wall. I went flying over, smashed my head. Maybe all of this wouldn't have been so bad, but I didn't have a visa to get into Cambodia. We paid the guy. So getting back out was a little bit sketchy, and then we went to Thailand.
Your family must be a nervous wreck.
This is why I said why not.
I pray for him constantly. He's grounded.
I broke my ankle in Vietnam, Gibraltar, Costa Rica, Botswana, Cambodia. All countries where either a monkey, an ape, or a baboon tried to bite me. They're not my friends. I've been to the Oscar parties twice, hosted by Elton John. I've met every celebrity you can think of. Chef Gordon Ramsay's cooked me dinner twice. Florence Henderson literally sat and fed me my salad one night. And she was amazing. And the last thing that I wrote is probably my proudest thing. Then there's the one photo, that photo, was to go and buy these kids bicycles in Cambodia. These kids that live in garbage dumps. So to go to this place and see these kids, and, you know, that's what these travels give to me, is the spirit, right, of humanity. And like I said, it's been kind of a weird path for me. I use software to do the photography, right, because the music thing, I had to do some kind of artistic thing. And hitting a drum makes people very angry, so I picked up the camera. It's really how I transitioned into that. And so I'm really blessed that I get to go and do these things. But in all of these places, I'll tell you, I meet the absolute most amazing people, and people that don't speak our language. They will take you, and they will take you home, and cook you dinner, and they'll guide you and protect you and just do amazing things. And it's really, really, for me now, is to try to get back. This photo, now that it's gone, I've got a project that I've been working on for about 15 years that I call World Peace. And essentially what it is every single country I go to is to just get somebody like that. It's international. Everybody knows it, and we all do it. So at some point, I'll put a book together that is every country. To date, it's been about almost 50 countries I've been to. But everywhere I go, you see it, and it's really cool, you know, that I get to share this with these people. So Brandon, I mentioned that they were very good to me by changing curriculums and working with me. I came here when I think I was 13. We moved from Warren, which was a big school, a lot of kids, you know, much different. And when I came here, you know, it was very fun for me. It was open, you know, we had property where we could ride motorcycles and do a lot of different things. And the teachers at the school were all unbelievable. You know, I never really got in trouble. In fact, one time I can mention, and I was going to talk about this earlier. Oddly enough, this is kind of connected dots for me, because the Donaldson Foundation, and Mr. Donaldson was one of my teachers in gym, and Mrs. Fisher was one of my teachers in library. And the one time that I got in trouble in the school was on our class trip. The kids were drinking maybe a couple, and one of us got caught by Mrs. Fisher, and then I came back and was sentenced by Mr. Donaldson. I swear, what he said to me is, your punishment is you can't go to the prom. And I said, well, I wasn't going to go anyway. And then he said, you can't go to the junior senior banquet. And I said, I didn't know we had it. And he told me to get out. That's kind of how I was. Okay, one thing I made, and Avery, this is for you. She came from Chicago, by the way, right? And she will be a future pro photographer, I'm sure. And so for me, it's really cool that she's here. And I'll tell you that recently when I was in Tibet, it was supposed to be one of the finest photographers in the world was coming on this trip. Well, the big dummy didn't fill out his paperwork properly, and they wouldn't let him in Tibet. So when we got there, it wound up me leading this photography workshop. And I had to quickly come up with, you know, a course, if you will, for a lot of the other photographers. And they asked me, how do you become a good photographer? And I told them two things that they thought were crazy, but and you think maybe are silly. but I told him to learn how to play guitar. And I told him to figure out what kind of a dog you are. What that means is very silly, but what that means is when you play guitar, how do you play? Are you soulful? Do you play blues? Do you play, acoustic guitar, lead guitar, rhythm guitar, right? There's a certain feeling to it. And what kind of a dog are you? I mean, we're being funny about it, but I said, okay, would you be a Labrador and be very happy and friendly, or would you be a Chow Chow like I have that bites everybody? You have to know who you are. And when you understand that, you can now take that to your art. But it's very important to be in touch with knowing how you think and how you feel, and then to represent that in your photos properly. And then the other thing is to take a lot of shots. If I take 1,000 photos, in the past 6 months, my wife and I, we go all over taking photos. I probably have literally 10,000 photos that I haven't even looked at yet. So maybe there's some gems in there. Usually I know when I click that was a keeper, but if you take 1,000 of them, maybe I'll like one. It's, you have to be to that level of quality to represent yourself as a professional. And you'll see that you won't like anything you did. And that's how you keep pushing yourself. You'll sell a photo to a magazine, or you'll post it, and 300 people will like it, and then a week later you'll hate it. And that's good though. You keep pushing yourself to get better and better and better, but you raise the bar every time. You have to keep it up. Giving. I was saying all the time that if your hand is out, it should be taken. It should be given. So this is something that I suppose for my parents, right, that's big for me, and that goes to what Mrs. Fisher mentioned about mentoring. It's key. Me not being a college student, I get it. You have to work 20-hour days, 7 days a week, and there's going to be people there, hopefully, to sort of guide you along that path. But, I was hoping there would be more kids here tonight. You have to put in that effort. And forgive my analogy here, but we say all the time, if it's like Cowboys and Indians movie, if the Indians got the cowboy with 20 arrows and an axe, you get back up. You get back up. It doesn't matter what happened to you, you get back up, because you think it's the end of the world, and it isn't, So I hope that we can all be better mentors and a little bit more giving. These kids, they need help. Especially like in these fields, every single person has a camera in their pocket right now. Everybody. It's very hard. And so you have to give that extra bit, and people need to help you along the way. And as I told you, anything you need from me, I will be more than happy to help you out. So, some advice that I was hoping I could give to some children would be to be willing to do more for less. I had a kid maybe 6 months ago that I offered a job, a very, very nice job. The kid, I met him at the coffee shop. He worked there. And he told me he was graduating with an IT degree. And he wanted to know more about my business and what we do. And I really liked the kid. So I didn't have a job, to be honest with you, but I liked him, so I told my guys to make a job for this kid. We made him a wonderful offer with a couple weeks of vacation. He would have already traveled to probably 3 or 4 countries, medical, all the things. And what he did was he came back and he told me that I told him he had to work hard, so I had to pay him more. And it just blew me away. This mentality, So I think now, the kids to succeed, You have to go and take what you can get. You work your butt off and you prove yourself and you will get everything you ever wanted. But that mentality of you have to pay me more if I have to work hard, the kid is still working at the coffee shop. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, but if he, his parents put him through college and he wants to go places, then take what you can get and go. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? All people are basically pretty reasonable. And I don't know, you have to take risks. And when you do that, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to crash hard. And like I said, you got to know to forgive yourself and pick back up and go and do it all over again, because it doesn't come fast. And then I've got this theory that I tell everybody that, not so much a theory, but a story that, like I told my son, and everybody that's young, is to just lay bricks. And they say, what does that mean? And I just said, look, every day, just put down one. Like if I told you to build this room, it would be overwhelming to you. You would look and think, oh my God, it would take me so long. But if you just put down one each day, but you put down one each day, in a couple years, you'll have it. And I actually did the math for my son, where it was, I think, 5 years, he would have a wall that was 3 feet high in the length of a football. And this is how everything that I've done or achieved, my viewpoint. All the software products we've created have been with zero investment capital. It's literally laying down bricks every single day. Guys just working hard and being passionate about what they do and believing in what they do. And 10 years later, 15 years later, we have world-class products. So I hope that we can teach kids that it's not going to happen overnight necessarily, and they can't expect that. They have to just keep going, and then hopefully they'll succeed. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for honoring me in this way. It's really, really unbelievable. I'm very, very proud. I'm proud that I made my parents proud, my wife proud. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think, Matt, you made a mistake letting me go last because I could tell stories. Oh, you did?
Wow, that was incredible. Just want to thank both tonight's honorees for providing inspiration for the young people that are walking the halls of all of our schools today, and for bringing so much pride to this community. These amazing stories, obviously they started right here, and it was an amazing foundation by many people. But you made it happen, and I just want to say thank you so much for representing this community and for making the Brandon community so proud. So let's have one more round of applause. I'd like to thank all of you for being part of this amazing event and for all of your support for this community and for the students here in this school. Without your support, we would not be able to do what we're doing here in the Brandon School District. I also want to thank the Donaldson family again. Thank you so much for making this happen. Thank you all for being here. Feel free to join in. There's plenty of food left. Thank you all. We'll see you here next year. Thank you so much.